glad he took me up on my invitation to join me in the studio. Please take a seat. Hello and welcome back, and it's stage 2. We've already done the black and white underpainting on this how to paint fabric, or folds in fabric I should say, and we've discussed that it's all about negative space, lights and darks and that type of thing, and that was an indirect painting. So now what we're going to do is see if we can do a direct painting. Direct painting. So basically just go in straight in with colour instead of going black and white and then glaze, and then once I've done the colour one, then I'll put a glaze on the other one, and you can see the two side by side and you decide which is best for you. That's all it is. Right, so I'm going to continue using this palette. It's all nice and dry because this is the following day to the previous one. And I've got my brushes, and I've got in my palette I've got some raw sienna, some Van Dyke brown and a little bit of black. Yes, that's all I need. That's all I need. Oh, I tell you what I do want as well is a little bit of white just to change the value. So we'll put a bit of white down, and I will be explaining how I actually mix these colours as we go along. Now this is not gesso, this is acrylic painting. The previous one was gessos. Do you remember we used the gesso in the previous? This time it's going to be acrylic paint, that's the difference. So yeah, let's see what we can do with this one. So I'm just going to get some colours on my palette, and then let's get painting. Okay, so I got colours, I got a little bit of white, and I got the raw sienna, I got some Van Dyke brown, and I'm basically going to be doing exactly the same as I did before, but this time I'm going to be using acrylic paints. So I'm trying to mix a nice dark colour, then just Van Dyke brown. Okay, just taking the excess off my brush. Can we see? Yeah. So this is not going to be the same obviously as the other one, because I can't repaint folds and that type of stuff. So I'm blocking in now with the colour. Now unlike just a black in here, unlike gesso, we've got to wait for these layers to dry before we can go over them. The gesso dries very, very rapidly. But what I'm going to do now is just block in some darks. And as I said, this is just an underpainting stage. I got another over there. I'm just going to get myself a bit more Van Dyke brown onto my palette. I'm sorry about that. No, just a bit more Van Dyke brown onto my palette, just to establish and I'm following my reference as best as I can. I'm going to wash my brush really well. I'm going to use a bit of soap on it, wash it out again, rinse it well. So I got a nice clean brush and tapping it dry on my tissue paper on my kitchen roll like I did in the previous one. Now I'm going into titanium white in this instance. Not worried about the colour shift because I got a bit of dirty, I got a bit of Van Dyke brown in my brush, and my brush is a bit dirty, but that doesn't matter. I'm not worried much about that at the moment. Just establishing that collar at this stage, and then rinsing my brush out. I'm going into some raw sienna now. And this is direct painting, and as I said, we're using acrylic paint here now, not gesso like we did previously. And this is all what we call a blocking in stage. So I'm establishing some tones, some lights into my darks. I'm trying to recreate these folds. I find it's easier to work with gessos, but everybody to their own. Now I deliberately went in there wet just to show you that you can see where it's been lifting. So if that ever happens to you, leave it alone, do not touch. I'm just mixing a little bit of raw sienna and a bit of burnt umber just to get that middle tone I want. And then I'm going to clean my brush and I'm going to let that dry. Washing off in soap, and because acrylic paint will dry really rapidly and it will go into the ferrule of the brush if you don't be careful. So make sure when you're washing your brushes you do them correctly. Wash them correctly and make sure there's no paint in them whatsoever. And I always check my brushes into a clean pail of water just to make sure there's no pigment in there. And then I just tap them dry, lay them down. Now in this instance I think I'm going to use the airdryer. So I'm just got to go and switch that on one sec. Okay, so I got to go in. This is just a normal hairdryer. It's not a heat gun, nothing like that. You don't need anything that powerful. So very quick way of drying your paint down. So I'll do that. I'll start it and then I'll stop because I don't want to see me videoing this. It's just ridiculous. So okay, so that's all nice and dry. Now what I'm going to do, I did blank off the black and white to the colour because I didn't want to confuse myself, but what I've decided to do is I'm going to try and match what I've done in the black and white with the colour, and the only way I can do that is look at what I've already previously painted. So yeah, well, I'm just going to play around now with a bit of the bird number and that, and just watch what I'm doing. All I'm going to do is try and get this pattern onto there, and that's all it is really. So if that's all nice and dry, don't touch it with your fingertips. There's grease spots there, right? Don't touch. Always use that finger part there. So you test that as much as you like, because there's no grease spots on that part of your finger. So right, let's get my brushes running, and let's get back to work. Okay, so looking at this, we've got like a mid-tone there, haven't we? So let's mix a little bit of raw umber, a little bit of light brown together. We'll just get that. Let's just try and work on that bit there. I want to deepen the... I'm not going to get this perfect. I've given up, I think. I'm going to just deepen up this area now to this side. There's a bit of a white area there, not white, but a brighter area there. I'm just putting this on a little bit thicker now. You can still glaze over acrylic paint, you know. We're just going to put a glaze over that, but I mean a very thin glaze, but there's nothing stopping you glazing over this and altering its colour and its tonal values if you wanted to. Of course you can. You know, I could put a raw sienna wash over this, and I most probably will do, not a wash, a glaze, and that's going to help that out as well. So what we're doing now is we're just building up the layers and trying to blend that in as well as we proceed through this tunic. I'm just picking up a bit more paint and putting it under my palette here, and I'm not pressing too hard with this bristle brush, because it's a bristle brush I'm using. I'm not pressing too hard with it. But I just want to try and blend these colours in together. I'm just working on, I'm switching between my paints at the moment, a bit of raw sienna, a bit of Van Dyke brown, and I'm just not cleaning my brush in between these, so I'm just mixing them together as I'm painting them on. Yes, the rain is coming down again, but we can't moan, and we know we can't. So this is just let's just build it up really, of different colours. Now I just add a touch of white now to my raw sienna, which is going to change its value as touch. It's just going to brighten it a bit, like the grey scale stick, as you can see. See that? How that actually, a little touch of white will actually brighten it up. Now when you darken the colour, you can add a black or you can add his complement. So a complement tends to grey down the colour you're using, whereas the black tends to give it a bit of a shadow, not a shadow tone. What's the word I'm looking for, Clive? I don't know if the sun to shine. Tint. It's a tint, is it? I don't know. Who cares? I don't care particularly at this moment in time. Yeah, but don't. If you're going to mix white with a colour, don't go putting black in the same mix as that, because it'll go like a dirty, muddy. It'll go weird. Because it's going to grey, isn't it? If you think about it, if you've got the black in there and the white in there, then it is going to grey it, and that's not what you want. No, it certainly is not. And all I'm doing here is basically what I was doing, if you think about it, with the gesso. And I'm going into a bit of antique brown now. I haven't cleaned my brush yet, so that I'm trying to get these colours to all merge-ish, if I say such a word, merge into each other. I find it's harder to do it this way, personally. And I've tried several different ways to play around with this, and all I'm doing, I'm tapping my brush onto the, remember I told you about that? It's a bit of kitchen roll with some water, so I'm not actually going into water, I'm just taking the moisture off that, and that's enough again to just give me that moisture in the brush that I need to blend this through. And when you're doing this, you know, it's always handy, even when you're doing a direct painting such as this, to have a grayscale stick next to you, because it'll help you define your brightest whites and or brightest areas and darkest areas, and it just gives you that the ability to see the difference. So I'm just going to put a scarf in place here. So I'm just going to block this in as it would be on the original. We didn't do it on that one, but it doesn't matter. It's the same principle as the smock or the gown or whatever it is she's wearing. All I'm doing now is I'm going in with a bit of antique brown, and I'm just dropping those folds in. Let that dry. Acrylic painting is exactly what I've said to you before. It's a process of building up in layers. Now the best way I can explain that is, if you look at most of my paintings, you will see that I'm just cleaning my brush. I'll always build in layers. And the best example of that is the series that I'm currently running, but I don't know when this is going to be aired, so it might already be up on YouTube by the time this is aired. Is the Back to Basics lessons when I'm painting a dragon standing on a rock, and you will see the whole in process of that. I'm going into a bit of black now, and I mean just a touch of black. I just want to get a dark edge going down there. I want to get an edge going down there, and you will see me actually building that up from the blocking in stage right up through to the final painting, and I think it's over quite a few episodes, I should say, but you know, you will get more of an in-depth idea of what I'm actually trying to do here. And all I'm doing now is I'm putting a little bit of lighter raw sienna in there, and I'm just going to blend that through just to catch these areas. Yeah, you can use any brush for this. I just prefer to use a bristle brush, but it doesn't really matter what brush you use as such. You need something a little bit firmer, as I said previously, but you've got to find out what works for you, because it took me a while to actually get used to using a bristle brush, because they're not very forgiving. But it does give you the ability to scrub in all I'm doing there, and I'm just lightening that edge up a touch, and I can always go in later on and darken it off with a shadow mixture. And now I normally make my own. You can use a Payne's grey or something like that if you wanted to, and all you're looking to do then really is, I got a bit of paint actually rubbing off the canvas there, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to dry that again, clean my brush, and I'm going to use the air dryer on it. So I'm just going to use the air dryer on this and dry this off again. Okay, now so I've changed over to a medium size detail brush, and I'm just going into a little bit of pure titanium white and just dampening my brush, wiping it off slightly onto the kitchen roll, and I'm just going to re-emphasize this collar. Now as you can oops, as you remember, there you are, I just dropped a blob of paint onto my canvas, so I'm going to get a bit of kitchen roll, moisten it off like that, and grab it on there, wipe it off immediately. Okay. With the gesso you can already establish this. So you can see that this is just a constant build-up of layers and feathering in and blending, and it's quite a hard process to get used to. But once you get used to it, it's easy. If, like everything else, you know, you don't have to think about what you're doing, it just happens. But that's why I prefer to paint indirectly, because all that work is already done and all I got to do is put a colour on it and maybe chuck a couple of highlights and shadows in. Whereas this way I'm doing this direct painting involves a lot more work. So don't tell anybody I said that. But indirect painting is a lot easier to do than direct painting. That's just how it is. And that's how the masters used to do it. They used to put all their groundwork in place first and then they go over it with glazes, but that was the way it was done in them days. And it's a skill that it's not taught, and it's a skill that a lot of people have forgotten as well. So, but it's not a type of thing that is taught to students. I don't know why, but I teach my students this way of painting, and they can turn out some phenomenal work very quickly. Yes, so that's all you've got to keep doing now, is just keep building up, establishing a few lights here and there. Don't overdo the lights. Now, if you watch how I paint a tree, you will see that negative space plays a lot of importance in a painting. And all this is really is just a play on your layers. So you start off with your darks and you build them up into different layers, as you would do with a tree. I don't want to overwork that too much tonight now, so I'm going to let that dry overnight because time's getting on. And when I come back to that now, we're just going to put a little bit in the background just to balance it up with the eye. And I'll show you what the next stage is on the black and white, and also we can do the same thing with the colour. So that's indirect and direct, and that's all it is really. Use those principles and you'll be able to paint folds and whatever you want. So it's all it is lights and darks, lights and darks. Practice, practice, practice. That's all it is. Practice, practice, practice. So I'll see you shortly. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did making it and painting it, I must add. And well, thank you very much for watching. Check me out on Facebook. You can join me on Twitter. Don't forget to check those playlists out, and I invite you to press the subscribe button if you haven't already done so. So thank you very much for watching. I'm Clive from Clive's Art, and I will see you on the next episode. Bye bye.